this even more calling out aggressive Don Lemon. I have to say, I really am enjoying
Dark
this
Lemon. Dark Lemon.
Dark Lemon. I like that.
That's what people are calling me, Dark Lemon. And hey, I am brown. I don't mind it. So when it comes to them, they believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion because they don't think that the brown folks who are, as Vivek Ramaswamy said, smarter than them, not as lazy as them, should get these jobs first. And they say, no. We should be getting these jobs first, even if they're not as smart and as qualified as the brown folks. They believe in diversity, equity, inclusion for themselves,
right?
But not when it comes to black people. So blaming black people on diversity, equity, and inclusion it's just their way of saying I am a racist and I'm just going to make any excuse to be a racist.
Make America white again. I wanted to, speaking of race, if you remember the FBI, I think she's a spokesperson for the FBI who spoke at the press conferences, a black woman. And she had said it wasn't a terrorist attack. And then she made a mistake. And then a couple hours later, she corrected herself, right? She clarified, not a huge deal. And MAGA, they're going all after her for saying this wasn't a terrorist attack. Yet it's totally okay for them to say that this was a migrant. And this was Joe Biden's open border policy. Mike Johnson the other day. Mike Johnson knows that this wasn't a migrant. He goes on Fox News the other day, still blaming Joe Biden and the open border policies, which, by the way, there is no open border. But what do you make of this? I mean,
Walls and who else? There was another one who did the exact same thing.
Oh yeah, there's a plethora of Trump. Yeah.
What did I make of that? Look, especially, I'm not sure of the context of the one that she did. Anybody can make a mistake, and if you correct it, especially, and then in the beginning, as I know from covering breaking news for decades, situations always change. You get information that could be wrong in the beginning, and then it changes.
Sure.
So for them to call her out about getting that wrong when they got so much wrong about it is just it's again, as I said, what does that mean? Race is gonna race. That's what I lost my train of thought because I wanted to talk about the hypocrisy of them saying that I was gonna say, and if they are criticizing her, have they seen Senator Kennedy? And what he sounds like and looks like on the air.
I was just going to ask you that next.
With terrible information.
What do you make of that? At the press conference?
I'm here in Louisiana, and people are saying keep those two off of television because they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they look like idiots, and they're making the people of Louisiana look bad.
Did you hear the joke he made during the press? I'm sure you did at the press conference about a media company, and they happen to be on the right side of the room, and he makes a snarky attack joke about them. Meanwhile, 14 of his constituents are dead, dozens more injured, and he decides to take the mic and kind of pushes the woman off to the side. The black female who is the FBI spokesperson gets in there to get in a zinger. I mean, how despicable. And then you have the governor. I don't know if you saw pictures of the governor, who I think is also despicable, by the way, who is at an expensive steakhouse dinner that day.
My mom was telling me about, my mom's sitting right next to me. You said the governor was getting criticized for taking a picture of thumbs up at a steakhouse,
right? He's smiling, Don. Your mom is right. Yeah. And we just put the picture up. He's
they're
smiling.
All pissed off. Louisianans are pissed off, except for the MAGA brain dummies. They're all, they make excuses for everything. So don't even, I don't even just call them dumb. I don't even I give them no credence anymore because they're co-opted. They need to be deprogrammed. And I think it's going to run its course, especially during this administration. It's going to be F around. They F around and they found out. They're going to find out. But I mean, come on, Governor.
Yeah, it's pathetic. Don, I love this. I love this even more calling out aggressive Don Lemon. I have to say, I really am enjoying
Dark Lemon. Dark Lemon.
Dark Lemon. I like that.
That's what people are calling me, Dark Lemon. And I am brown. I don't mind it.
I'm White Shapiro. I guess that'll be my nickname.
No, you're gonna be light, dark and light. We'll start. Maybe you should start a podcast called Darkness and Light.
I like that. I think that would work. Let's talk about the Democrats for a moment. My take is Joe Biden should have stepped down much sooner. 3 months was not long enough for Kamala to campaign. I also felt like her campaign was maybe a little bit too careful with her from the beginning. Listen, I don't know if it would have changed if she did the Joe Rogan show, but I thought she should have done it, or at least have Tim Waltz do it. I thought Josh Shapiro would have been a better pick. Those are my criticisms. And look, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, thank you for your service. I think now it's time for them to get out of the way and let some of the other rising stars of the party be who they are, like the Jasmine Crockett's of the world who did this show a few weeks ago. I think we need more of those people on the left. What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree with that? What are your thoughts?
I agree with a lot of what you said. I liked Josh. I thought Josh Shapiro was a more capable candidate. I worried that by introducing a Jewish candidate that it would sort of coalesce anti-Semitism and make it even more about identity. Like, I think there was something smart about going with the white guy as VP as the counterpart to Kamala. But on a personal level, I think Josh Shapiro is absolutely phenomenal. I think the one area, I don't know if we disagree, but I think that the first moments of the Harris campaign actually were really good. I think at first she was giving different and dynamic speeches each day rather than what became the same speech every day or multiple times a day. They were going with the "these guys are really weird" stuff, which I believe was working. Republicans tried to laugh it off, but I think they were laughing because they realized it was working. They got away from the "these guys are weird" stuff. And in March of 24, I went to the White House with a few other creators, and we met with Kamala Harris. This was before we knew Biden would step down, before all of it. And it was a completely different Kamala Harris than what ended up coming out in the media. She was dynamic. She was on her feet answering questions about everything from AI to tech to economics. And I thought she could very easily be president. And then you get to the campaign, I don't know who to blame, right? I don't know if it's handlers, focus groups, consultants, or what it is. It was not good. It was not good. So I agree with you. Biden should have gotten out early. I think that there should have been a more robust primary, although I believe Harris would have won it anyway. But I think that it would have been better to do a more robust and serious primary. I think it was winnable. I don't think doing Rogan would have won it, but I think a broader progressive media ecosystem. You know, I've said this on some other shows. When Trump goes and hangs out with the Nelk boys for 3 hours, he tells 1,000 lies, but it doesn't matter because it feels unscripted, it feels relaxed, and it feels much more like you'd rather hang out with Trump than Harris. And that has so much value.
Agree. And by the way, that meeting at the White House, plenty of my friends were there, JoJo from Jers, Joanna Carducci, and others. And they told me some things very similar to what you just said. And I just think they were too careful with her. I agree with a lot of what you said. I don't blame Kamala Harris for anything. I thought she did a great job in the debate. I thought she did the best job she could have done. I was disappointed that Joe Biden didn't step down earlier. Do you think the Chuck Schumers and the Nancy Pelosi's, it's their time maybe to step aside and let a younger generation come in? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the average age here, you know, we talk about the next generation. In some sense, the next generation 60, right? So it's like we might actually need to go a couple generations. And this is not about being ageist. This is simply, I want a diversity of ages that is more representative of American demographics. And so I want the older folks with their experience and their gravitas to be a part of it. But I think we also need to be looking at the bullpen. And, you know, I think J.D. Vance is a disaster. But generationally, I don't know about 40. I think he's 40 to be VP. But 45, 46 as a VP, you know, is it a Buttigieg? Is it, I don't know who it is. But I do think that we need a little more age diversity.
Agree. How dangerous, I always wanted to ask you this, the Sean Hannitys, the Mark Levins, the Laura Ingrams, the Tucker Carlsons. You know, a guy like a Mark Levin never debates a liberal. And I feel like, I don't know if you feel the same way I feel, many of these people on the right, if you challenge them the way you do every day, they see it as a personal attack. It's one thing if you call somebody a name, but when you challenge them on their positions, many people on the far right, at least to me, see it as a personal attack. How do you see it that way?
Only with some of them. I think there's a pretty broad range. Like, I remember when I interviewed Dick Morris, the former Clinton friend who became just a whacked out right-wing guy. When I challenged him on just, you know, nominal things, he just hung up and ended the interview with me. And so that's one side. On the other hand, you know, I want to give credit to people whose politics I find despicable, like a Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager, I challenged him. We disagreed. He did not take offense to being challenged. I then brought him on moderating a debate against a streamer named Destiny, who some know as Stephen Kenneth Bonnell II. And he was happy to be challenged and participate. And so I think I'm not praising his views, but I'm just saying he was willing to take any question anybody was willing to throw at him.
Well, that's good. I give him credit for that. I've emailed him back and forth. We've spoken. I want to give you the opportunity, David, to talk about this new book you got out. I believe it's out March 25th, if I'm not mistaken. It's called The Echo Machine: How Right-Wing Extremism Created a Post-Truth America. Talk to me a little bit about this book and why people should get it.
So here's the main premise of the book. Number one, to understand how we got to where we are today, you can't start with the last election or even with when Trump became a candidate. You've actually got to go back to the civil rights movement. That's when this entire radicalization of the right started. I won't tell the whole story now because it's in the book, but the idea here is this is an arc. Trump didn't cause it. He was the beneficiary at the tail end. Once we understand that, then we say, what are the alternative models for what works? And I think there's a bunch of models around the world. I look at 6 of them in the book. And then once we understand that, I sort of explain, now in the situation we're in, where so much has been lost, what sort of activism works, what does the left need to do with media, etc. So that's kind of like the arc of the book. I hope people do buy it. You know, one of the really interesting things is my show's completely independent. I'm not, part of any media conglomerate or network or anything like that. There's the assumption you can't have a successful nonfiction book unless you have like an MSNBC backing you or one of the biggest 4 publishers in the world backing you. We have enough pre-orders of this book right now that it's possible we might make New York Times bestseller.
Wow.
If that, I don't know that it's going to happen. We'll see, right? If that happens, it would just reinforce the idea that you don't need the TV networks necessarily anymore. You don't need the legacy publishers necessarily anymore. So I'm interested in 2 things. Number one, I want to prove that you can successfully do a nonfiction book without that backing. But also, I think the timing and the subject matter of the book is critical to understanding what's happening right now and what's next.
And if people want to pre-order the book, correct me if I'm wrong, David, you go to davidpakman.com/echo, right? And that's where
right.
That's where you can pre-order the book. I would highly recommend anybody do that. I'm certainly going to do that. Well, David, listen, if anybody calls into this show and blames you for the reason why Kamala Harris lost, I'll send it your way. Okay, man?
Or if they blame me for anything, right? Even if it's something, even if it's correct, right? If they don't like my new mustache and they say it's bringing on the downfall of the party or whatever, send it over.
I will. We get calls all over the country, and we get calls from the UK and Canada. Most of them are friendly. Some of them are right-wing buffoons, like those who blame you for the reason why Harris lost the election. David, I love what you do, my friend. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate you. We have a lot of the same friends out there in this industry, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on. Keep up the great work, my friend. Good luck with this book, by the way, as well.
Brian, thanks for having me, and keep up what you're doing.
Thank you, David. That means a lot. I got to ask you this to start the news the last couple days. What do you make of Donald Trump's pardons of some of these January 6th insurrectionists that attacked police officers? Now ICE can arrest people at churches and schools. The diversity program, federal employees on paid leave. I mean, it disgusts me, and I'm sure it disgusts you as well. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, if I had to summarize what's taken place since he's taken office, is that the white supremacy movement is live and well in every single way. When you talk about the January 6ers, we know that many of them were members of or are members of white supremacy organizations, whether we're talking about the Proud Boys or whether we're talking about the neo-Nazis. I mean, this isn't me just claiming this is what it is. You can go out, do your own research, and you will see. So that's what we saw with allowing those criminals to roam, because they're not a problem so long as they're white supremacists. And so we also see with the whole, go kick them all out, like let's go round them up and make sure that they all leave. Well, my question is, and I didn't get to ask this question in committee earlier today, what exactly does a quote unquote illegal alien look like? Is it like E.T.? How do you look at somebody and know? And I also did not get to share the story of a very close friend of mine who got married probably about 4 years ago. And she's a Caucasian woman. As far as I was concerned, she got married to a Caucasian man. as, you know, and they've got these beautiful babies. Like, that's just what it was. Well, she texts me so freaking scared. And so she was like, I'm concerned for my babies. And I'm like, why are you concerned for your babies? And she's like, well, because my husband is Swedish. And I was like, oh, I didn't know your husband was Swedish. And she's like, well, he was born in Texas, but like his parents, like, we don't necessarily know what their status was when he was born. And so, you know, it's just creating this confusion and this chaos. And honestly, when MAGA goes out and they talk about kicking everybody out, I can definitely tell you that, especially in the state of Texas, they're not going to go and find her Swedish husband. That's not who they're looking for.
Oh, I know that. You know, I agree with you. So, Congresswoman, I've always said "Make America Great Again." To me, feels like a slogan of "Make America White Again." They don't want people that look like you in this country. They don't want brown people in this country. They constantly attack brown people and those in the LGBTQ community. Do you agree with me on that? I feel like that's what the slogan really means.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. I mean, it is the beckoning call of white supremacy. And it really does feel like the Great Purge. I mean, even when we look at, you know, how dead set they were on even things like such as getting rid of the Roe decision, when we look at the numbers, they really were trying to get their numbers up, because in this last census that we had, it was the first time in which the white population did not grow. It's the first time. I mean, even when we look at the state of Texas, they did add some white folk, but it was 180,000 of the 4 million that were added. And so it's the coloring of America that is their biggest threat. And that is why they will vote against their own interests. That is why they don't care about the price of eggs. That is why they're not asking, well, sir, you said, you know, before day one, you were going to fix these prices. Why are you now, you know, you wouldn't even allow us into the chamber to come and see you. Like, did you forget about us? It's never been about them. It's been about this very whitewashing of America.
Agree. Congresswoman, I'm sorry I even have to bring up this woman's name because I think she's utterly despicable, but just for argument's sake here, if people want me to bring it, Nancy Mace. I call her out every day. I think she's a show woman in an aspect. She just wants to raise money. And I think the way her attacks on the trans, what does it say about her character that she tweets 200-300 times about trans women in bathrooms, but yet after a school shooting, maybe one tweet, thoughts and prayers. These are not serious people. And then she says, let's take it outside. And then she backtracks. Have you even talked to her since that conversation?
I haven't talked to her. We have nothing to talk about, to be perfectly honest, because if you're going to threaten violence against me while sitting in a chamber, and then again, you know, act in a very lawless way, and you're able to get away with it only because you are enjoying white privilege, we ain't got nothing to talk about, right? Because I know that had the tables been turned, and if I had said, let's take it outside, regardless of what I meant by it, they would have not only kicked me out of committee at that moment, but they actually would have been moving to expel me from Congress.
Agree.
And so I know what it is. You know, but I also did want to check to make sure I was correct when I thought that she was just trying to raise money off of trans folk. And listen, she's a cheap date because she's not even raising that much money. I mean, I'm just like, why are you doing all this? You're not getting that much money. She had 1/3 the amount of money that I have. And everybody knows that, unfortunately, in this country, until Kamala Harris was running for president, Black women have historically been the most underinvested in. So the fact that I am a junior member to you in Congress, and I'm a Black woman, and I have more money than you, baby, you need to come up with something else. But like, going after the trans folk, it's really not even paying off for you. So like, pick a new stick.
That's true. Congresswoman, don't shake her hand because she might wear an arm sling the next day. Just a little bit of advice there. I'm curious. Like, I've always looked at you as a fighter, right? You fight fire with fire. And we both have so much respect for Michelle Obama. When they go low, we go high. I understand what she was saying by that. But I've always said we need more Democrats in office like you. You are a fighter. You're not intimidated. I feel like there are some, and you can tell me if you disagree, some Democrats, understandably, that are scared of Donald Trump. They're scared. Dan Golden was talking about this, I think yesterday. They're scared to speak out against Trump because they're in fear for themselves and their family. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is a cult. And I hate that they have co-opted the Republican Party. There are what I consider to be real Republicans where we definitely disagree on policy, and won't necessarily find middle ground on certain things, but we absolutely work together where we can. And so I appreciate real Republicans. But right now, if you consider yourself to be a real Republican, then I'm telling you to run, honey. Run, run, run so fast, because MAGA is a cult. And what you have with cults is you have violence to make sure that you can keep people in line. And so while he doesn't necessarily have to do the dirty work, he has people such as the 1,500 people that he just pardoned from January 6th to go and do his dirty work. And so, yes, unfortunately, members like me, like Dan Goldman, like Eric Swalwell, like AOC, we absolutely get death threats. And I just want to be clear, anybody that wants this smoke, you can come get it. But if you survive it, because I am a Texan who is licensed to carry and who does keep firearms, if you survive it, you going to jail. Like, that's just what it is. So, I mean, you may think that your daddy Trump may come help you, but I'm trying to tell people that you really don't want to test it. I get that he just gave them a get out of jail free card, but if it means that it has to be my state prosecutor that comes after you and prosecutes you because I can't trust that the federal government will prosecute you and then allow you to sit in prison and rot if that is what you deserve for the type of harm that you decided that you want to try to bring upon me or my family, don't worry about it. Because in my county, I got a prosecutor that knows what to do. And I can guarantee you, ain't no MAGA coming up in Dallas County no time soon to serve as my prosecutor. So, you know, I just want to say, y'all just better be careful.
Couple more quick questions for you, Congresswoman. I know you got to run. I'm curious, if you were in a room and you had a chance to speak privately with Donald Trump, and I'm not saying you would even want to do that, but if you got the opportunity, I'm curious today, Congresswoman, what would you say to him to his face?
I have no words. I wouldn't even waste my time. You know, I will tell you that there are definitely people that serve in this chamber, as well as when I was in the state house, that are performative politicians. They do this all in performance. In fact, I had an actual friend of mine who's a Republican text me and say, oh, good, we're going to be on a committee together. Can we fight? Let me tell you, there are performative politicians. This guy is pure evil. We saw just yesterday when I'm sure everyone has seen the clip that has gone viral of the bishop that tried to make a plea for mercy to him. And he was almost indignant that he could be in church and listen to someone who believes in mercy. And so this is a guy that peddles Bibles and has no idea of what it means to really embody Christianity and what it means to have compassion and love and look out for those that really need the most help. Like he has no idea. Instead, he really is pure evil walking. And so I wouldn't waste my time because I don't think it's performative. I absolutely believe that he's just pure evil.
I agree. Last question for you, Congresswoman, and thank you again so much for the time. Really appreciate it. We see you guys in public in hearings, but I'm curious. I had Eric Swalwell on the show not that long ago, and he said Ted Cruz gave him a high five in the restroom and said, you're doing a great job. It seems like some of these MAGA Republicans are very two-faced and phony. They know who Donald Trump is, as we do, but they just won't say it publicly. Have you had any of these Republicans privately talk to you, and do they seem like some of them seem like different people striking a different tone when they speak to you privately that you could share with us?
Not MAGA. No, not the MAGA ones. I mean, I do have other Republicans that vote for all of the terrible policies that MAGA pushed forward. Yeah, absolutely. But as far as the majority of the conversations I have with Republicans, they come up to me. They're usually very polite. After I had the little situation with Marjorie, there were men and women that were like, we love your eyelashes. Like, basically, they didn't want that smoke. They went out of their way. To really, I've had them compliment how I dress. We've had conversations about our districts. So I will say that while I disagree with the fact that they failed to stand up for some really bad policies, and they kind of just fall in line, I will say that I've not had anyone that is MAGA, like the MAGA brand, that has been any different behind closed doors.
Just since you brought up Marjorie Taylor Greene, one last question. Obviously, the Butchbot comment, which I thought was hilarious, by the way, and she deserved it because she attacked your looks first. And I love your eyelashes too, by the way. I bet you JD Vance would enjoy it too. We know he likes a little bit of eyeliner, but that's another story for another show. Congresswoman, was that something that just entered your brain just in the moment, or was that something that you thought of before? I'm just curious. The Butchbot.
It depends on how you think of it. It went really fast for everyone that was watching on the internet. but the entire exchange was a lot longer as we were waiting on a ruling from the chair. And I was getting information from Jamie Raskin about how he was about to rule. So we actually still have the piece of paper where I wrote it down because we have notepads. So in the moment I wrote it down, but it wasn't like at that exact moment that she said it. It was right before I said it that I wrote it down, which some time had passed. So I did look over at her when I learned that the ruling was not going to go the way that it's supposed to go. And from head to toe, I dressed her down.
I'm glad you said that. It was great. Congresswoman, in closing, I think you're great. We need more Democrats like you in office. You're fearless. You're intelligent. I just think hopefully more Democrats will rise to the occasion like you have. Please keep up the great work. I love what you do. And I so appreciate your time. We know how busy you are. Maybe a month or two down the road. Gosh, we'd love to have you on again. And I appreciate you, Congresswoman. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a great one.
Thank you. You too. All right. There she is, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Big fan of hers. I think she's awesome. We touched on a lot.